leaves that.
This week, why Christian Horner is backing Alex Albon, and the journey that Max Verstappen has been on to become team leader. And now, from Tom's penthouse suite in Barcelona and my old kitchen table, this is F1 Nation. Lights out in Barcelona, and it's a brilliantly dominant performance for Lewis Hamilton.
Didn't even know his last lap. Awesome.
It was a virtuoso performance, a guy doing it better than anybody else. And I'm not talking about AJ's commentary, good though it was. I'm talking about Lewis Hamilton. Win number 88 was one of his very best. So let's talk F1 on the Nation with me, Tom Clarkson.
And me, Alex Jakes. Well, Hamilton was in the zone. He didn't even know that he'd crossed the line, which is always terrific for a commentator because you're looking, hold on, is that checkered flag out? I made a muppet of myself once again. No, that is the end of the race. We're all good. It's all fine. And standing on a podium, TC, for the 156th time, more than anyone in Formula One history. Another record, maybe not the main one that we'll talk about when this season is concluded, but another record for Lewis Hamilton.
It was extraordinary. And actually, in the press conference straight after the race, for the first time in a while, I sensed he was a little bit emotional about that. I put that question to him and he checked himself and just went, to be mentioned in the same breath as Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna. He said, I still can't get used to it.
I wonder if that's something that you only appreciate when you stop as a driver. Interesting stuff, that. So a great performance for Hamilton, an impressive performance from Verstappen, but a difficult day for Valtteri Bottas, and surprising to hear him saying that he can see the championship drifting away. I know that that is reflective of what everyone might be thinking. Strange to hear it from the man himself, though.
Yeah, it was a difficult day for him, but do you know what, AJ? Made even more difficult when he came in from the podium, because the cooldown room in Spain has a TV in the corner, and the volume was up, and I think they were watching Sky F1. And
not the PLC on F1 TV, available in over 70 countries around the world. What?
If we ever go back to Spain, I'll set them straight, AJ.
Good,
I promise.
good,
but
good. I'm glad.
Imagine this. You've just had a really bad race. You've come in, all a little bit faux celebrations on the podium, spraying champagne. Last thing you want to do because you've just had your nose dragged through the dirt. He then comes in just as Nico Rosberg is slagging Valtteri Bottas on the TV.
Oh, no.
Right? Yes, and I'm told he was just wiping his brow with a towel, staring at the TV, just going, what is that man saying? And at that moment, Rosberg was saying, I can't believe he left the door open on the right-hand side on the run to turn one, letting Stroll through.
Is that Rosberg critiquing someone's opening lap in Spain?
The two Mercedes come together!
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, but he'll blame the overtake button or something, won't he?
Yeah, the wrong mode that forced him to chop across from the left to the right-hand side of the track. Yeah. Either way, not unfair criticism. The brutal reality of when you are winning in Formula One, everyone wants to know you in that paddock. When you're struggling, it's a very lonely place to be, especially if you time your appearance in the cool-down room at exactly the wrong moment.
Too true, mate. And Hamilton, it was a virtuoso performance. And it seems a bit of a contradiction, but it was a tyre management race, but also a brilliant driver performance from Hamilton. And that seems a contradiction, but actually the way he managed those tyres and was able to get more out of his tyres than anybody else whilst lapping faster than anybody else is a real skill that we all praised Max Verstappen for after the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone. And it was Hamilton's day on Sunday to get that praise.
Because we never saw Lewis Hamilton in a Minardi or a Toro Rosso or a team further towards the back of the grid, we never got those days like we did with Alonso, like we did with Vettel, where you could clearly see an exceptional performance with average machinery. And because he's always been basically in a race-winning car, only driver in the history of the championship to win a race in every season he's competed, we maybe don't appreciate his ability with tyre management as much.
Great point, AJ. I mean, the closest he's got to a bad car is, I think, 2009.
What was his other option? Let's say they put him in the Sauber, right? Let's say they put him in the Sauber, like they were talking of doing with Gary Paffett around that same time. Yeah. He's in the Sauber. He would have got a podium in the Sauber. He would have, you know, Vettel had with Monza in 2008. You would have seen a facet of the driving that put him so much further ahead. You have to look a little bit harder, but the skill undoubtedly there, and that's what we saw on Sunday.
No giant-killing performance because he's always been the giant.
Time now for a regular feature on F1 Nation. It's Sebastian Vettel's Radio Corner.
Okay, here's the task for you. Need to fix them to the end, and then what do I have to do to stay ahead?
They come back to you. 23.4, 23.5 till the end.
I can do that. Well, let's try, we've got nothing to lose.
P5, that's what I was asking for.
Another radio message from Sebastian, this time giving a task to the team. I'm not sure I've ever heard that phrase used by a driver to the team. I'm really loving the reality. We're getting shown the reality of what it's like behind closed doors, what we don't normally hear. He's masking nothing right now.
And it makes you realise what they're giving away when he leaves that team. That experience is absolutely crucial. He's making calls in the car that without him would have led to a repeat of Hungary when Charles Leclerc was put on the wrong tyres. And we saw it with Hamilton in the race as well, when he said, don't put me on the soft tyre at the end of the race, put me on the medium tyre. And so Vettel has still got it. And I thought it was quite interesting after the race when the previous week, Charles Leclerc had been praised up and down the pit lane for his one-stop strategy to fourth place. Vettel, one-stop strategy to seventh, admittedly, but still a great drive, pretty much unnoticed in the pit lane. There was none of the eulogy that we had the previous week. And so I thought that was a reflection of where Sebastian is at as well in terms of his popularity, really. I thought he'd get more praise for a drive like that. Here's a guy who's got his mojo back. It was a much better weekend for him. Yes, he didn't make it through to Q3 on Saturday, but it was only a tiny amount slower, really, than his teammate. Yet, Sebastian, you sort of feel that there are people in the pit lane who want to see the back of him, I feel, and that's harsh. He was presented on Thursday with question after question in the press conference about his future. He took it on the chin. He answered each one as thoroughly as he could. He didn't shy away from anything. And yes, the sport will miss him. What's he going to do? I said on this show a week ago that I think a deal has been agreed in principle with Racing Point, and I stand by that. I hate seeing Sebastian suffering, and I think if this continues, I would love to see him walk away. He's got nothing to prove in my eyes, and I just want to see a happy Sebastian Vettel who could then maybe come back to the sport in a different capacity in years to come. AJ, do you know what? I'd love to see him in a commentary box next to you. I think that would be gold dust, mate.
And should he announce his retirement from Formula One, I'm taking that straight to the big bosses of F1 TV. Right, just time to check in with Kimi Räikkönen making friends with Romain Grosjean.
Look what the that idiot did. I was already turning and he almost took me off.
Romain Grosjean is the head of the GPDA, and most of the GPD cannot stand the way he drives.
He's just reminding them what you mustn't do.
Yeah.
And one of the things Grosjean has done quite a lot of, and that's what Kimi was unhappy with there, is moving under braking when he's being overtaken. Well, one of the kings of overtaking this year has been Alex Albon. And when you put his overtaking ability next to the star quality and speed of Max Verstappen, that's a pretty strong driver lineup. So we thought we'd catch up with Red Bull Racing boss Christian Horner. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see most of you too.
Yeah, do you know what? It's true. It's nice to actually sit opposite you, albeit socially distanced. But so much of this life we lead now is Zoom, isn't it? And a face-to-face interview is rare.
Absolutely. So it's the new world at the moment. So Zoom and Teams calls, and hopefully in coming weeks and months we'll be able to get a little bit back, more to normality.
A bit more like this now. 6 races in, what's been the highlight so far?
I think the highlight has been the way that Max has been driving the car, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously we achieved that phenomenal win last week at Silverstone, which was against the odds. I don't think any of us expected to have that kind of pace. But I think really the way he's driven this year at every single Grand Prix, he's just delivering at an incredibly high level and with great tenacity, and just doesn't give up.
Where's he improved since last year?
I think already last year, when he stepped into that sort of team leader role, he's really risen to that challenge, and he's taken off where he left off last year. He drove some great races last year, and he's carried that form into this year. So, we're desperate to get some performance on our car so that we can put a sustained challenge to Mercedes together.
You talk about his tenacity. Does that sort of come out in the car? Is there greater consistency from him this year?
Yeah, I think his consistency is right there, and I think how controlled he is in the races. You can hear how relaxed he is in the car, how much capacity he has been truly impressive. So the performance in Austria in the wet, Hungary, the comeback after the one blot on his copybook this year on the parade lap, the Silverstone, the first race, the second race, he's been on fire this year.
I thought when you were going to mention your highlights of the year, it might have been the way the mechanics turned it round on the grid in Hungary.
But I think just the teamwork in general has been phenomenal, whether it's pit stops that they've done 5 of the fastest so far, the way that they've turned the car around in difficult situations like on the grid, they've been absolutely phenomenal.
Now look, you've been here since the beginning, here Red Bull Racing began.
Yeah.
Is the vibe still very similar to back in the early days, or how's it changed?
Well, compared to the very early days, we were finding our feet, we were establishing ourselves, and then we got into a period between 2009 and 13 of winning championships. And then since the V6 hybrid formula came in 2014, we've been very much the bridesmaid, I suppose. Mercedes have had that dominance, but it just feels that there's a real determination. The partnership from Honda is working very well. The team is largely unchanged from the dominating period that we had. Of course, we've strengthened it in areas, but when I look around the room in the engineering office, many of the faces are the same ones that were winning championships back in 2010 to 2013. So I think that everybody is desperate to get into a championship challenge again, and we're working our hardest to get into that position.
Do you think this is the most competitive you've been in the hybrid era now?
Yes, I do. I think that we've had races that we've benefited from strategy or from days that Mercedes have had off days. But if I look at Silverstone last weekend, that was genuinely a race where we outraced them on that day. So we just need to have more Sundays like that.
When are we going to see you outpace them? You've outraced them, but what about outpace them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got changes coming in qualifying. How much that will affect the running order is to be seen, but we've got to make some improvements to our car as well, which everybody's working very hard on. And I would hope during the second half of the year that we do find that pace. So that's what we're very focused on, because of course this car we take into next year as well.
It's quite apt that we're having a chat really in Barcelona, because this is where you first drove the LB16 back in February. How's it changed? What are the drivers saying between then and now?
Well, of course, it's very different conditions, but the car has changed significantly between then and now. The aerodynamic upgrades that are brought, to the car, it's most of the aero surfaces are different between when we were here in February, March time, and now being back here in August. So quite different, and of course, these temperatures make it very different in its characteristics.
Look, one final question on Max. Do you think he'd benefit from having an experienced teammate? There's, obviously great driver, but he's still very early in his career. And if he'd had a Vettel and Alonso, someone else with that level of experience, would he be learning more than he's learning now?
I think he learned a lot with Daniel, but I think that he's at that level now where it wouldn't matter who you put next to him. He's very, very self-analytical. He's pushing himself. He's always pushing to be better. And he now has 5 years worth of Formula One experience behind him. So he is very much our team leader.
I notice a real change in him in the press conferences, at least. He seems more relaxed.
Yeah.
He's very engaging, more engaging than he was. Have you been giving him a few tips, or is that just a sort of maturity?
I just think that's where he's at the moment. I think that obviously these races there's less distractions as well. So it's just about the racing. There's not the commercial pressures and so on. And I think that he's just in a state of mind where he is very relaxed. He knows what he's got. He knows where we're at. He knows where we need to improve, and he knows what he's doing. And I think he's very comfortable with where he's at the moment.
Who's got the toughest job, Valtteri Bottas alongside Lewis Hamilton, or Alex Albon alongside Max?
Well, both are in enviable seats. So, Valtteri has a lot more experience than Alex. I mean, going up against Max, arguably the most informed driver in Formula One at the moment, would be tough for any driver. But Alex is still, he's still very young and young in experience. And he really in his 5 races into his second season. So we see the potential in him. We're seeing on Sundays his racecraft is very strong, and I think it's only a matter of time before it all comes together for him. But I think they're probably 2 of the hardest seats in Formula One to be either the teammate to Max or indeed to Lewis.
Go on then. Heart rate on the pit wall at Silverstone last weekend when Alex was pulling those moves around the outsider cops.
Yeah, there was a few squeaky bum moments there, where because those corners are seriously fast, around the outsider cops, and I mean that showed immense bravery, I think he impressed the whole team with his racecraft. He has raced incredibly well, throughout the season, and I think that we just need to get him qualifying, and obviously starting this race on the third row is one of his best qualifyings of the year, so hopefully he can go with that lead pack.
Where's he missing out in qualifying? When you look at the data, is there one particular area where Max is getting him every time?
Well, I think our car is a little tricky to drive at the moment over a single lap, and I think it is a little bit insecure in certain areas, whereas Max has got the confidence to drive through that. Alex needs the car to be a little bit more settled, and I think that will come as we improve the car, and hopefully therefore we'll see Alex's Saturday performances continue to improve.
Has he tried to drive around that problem?
Yes, but he's a very deep thinking driver rather than a seat of the pants driver, so he's trying to understand the car, and he's very sensitive to what the car is doing, whereas Max is far more robust in that respect. That the DRS stuck open on his quali lap in Hungary on the way into turn 1, and he had a big snap of oversteer, but he had to look on a replay to see why, and it was the DRS is open. For other drivers that would have been probably a monumental spin. So I think with Alex, it's time in the seat, and it's just getting himself comfortable, which is important for him.
And you can overthink this game, can't you?
You can overthink the game, and I think that he just needs experience, and I think with time that will come.
This is the last race of the second triple header. How are you finding it? How's the team? Is everyone holding up okay?
It's busy. It's tough because it's different kind of conditions. And triple headers are tough at the best of times. So, 2 lots of them. Thankfully, 2 of the races have been in Silverstone, so people got to go home. But everybody's races here. We all want to go racing. So we've got like a mini break coming up. We've got a weekend off. I mean, we don't know what to do with ourselves. But everybody's enjoying the battle, enjoying the fight, and up for the challenge.
And do you feel that these races, because there's no VIPs here and all the teams are down to the sort of skeleton staff needed to run their cars, there's a real old school feel about this?
There is, and it's because it's just pure. It's just about going racing. It's about the cars and the track, and not some of the other bull that you get sucked into. And I think that that's refreshing. I mean, even the podium at Silverstone, we won the race. It's like being at an indoor kart race where there's just a few mechanics, and team members clapping the drivers getting their podium. So it was a surreal feeling for such a big result. But it's just great to be racing again. And I think hopefully we can continue to put on a good show, and it won't be long before fans start coming back.
But do you think Formula One can learn anything from the phase it's having to go through now?
Yes, I think there's many things that you can learn, and it does highlight that the racing is key. And I think that we all miss having the fans here. We all miss that atmosphere. But I think that there's always lessons that you can learn, and certainly with the technology that is utilized now with Zoom and Teams meetings and so on, it opens up that communication, whether that's with the factory, whether it's with other engineering staff. So it engages the factory more in what we're doing during a Grand Prix weekend.
All right. Final question from me is that was Max Verstappen slamming the door. I take it he was smiling. You can't see because of the mask, can we? Right. This championship.
Yeah.
You got it in you?
Look, I think we're very much the outsider. We're a long shot, but we're still in it. And it's a weird season this year because of the disruption. But one thing about us is we'll never give up.
Always great to hear from Christian Horner there. And what I liked most of all about that is he was determined to conduct the interview face-to-face. He's clearly missed having you ask him questions, TC.
Do you know what? I'm loving these face-to-face things. Zoom is great because you can be nice and lazy and you can just sit at home chatting to whoever you want, wherever in the world. But actually, to go face-to-face, you forget just as a journalist, when you're talking, okay, they're still hidden behind a mask. But yeah, it was good. It was good to chat to him. I found his praise of Max Verstappen is obvious. It's not a new thing for Christian to praise him. But I thought it was interesting how he said he's grown and how he doesn't need an experienced driver alongside him. Because he's learnt a lot from Daniel and it's now just polishing the gemstone now and got the team in. He's really matured, Max, I think, in the last 12 months. Let's hope those engine modes, make you a little bit closer to them, particularly in the race, and we can actually have a proper championship, proper second half of the championship.
Well, on the other side of the garage, it's interesting that you mentioned the engine modes because they're being banned from Spa. Spa will mark 1 year of Alex Albon in the car. And maybe there might be a few people listening to this slightly surprised by the way that Christian Horner is backing Alex Albon because it's been tough. A reminder to everyone, in that year with the team, yet to stand on a Formula One podium. But Christian Horner seems very happy with the way that Albon has adapted to what is clearly a very difficult car to take to the limit.
I think the feeling within Red Bull is that of all the young drivers out there, no one would be doing a better job with that car than Alex Albon at the moment. It's tricky to drive. He's brave. He's clearly resilient. He hasn't given up. He's really been put under a bit of pressure recently. The press have been getting on his back a bit, and yet we're seeing him growing as a driver. I thought it was a better weekend for him in Spain, both in quali. Yes, compromised by the strategy in the race, but he never gives up. Last week, AJ, we saw him going round the outside of a couple of drivers at Copse. This week, round the outside of Magnussen at turn 3, and then he went round the outside, or had a damn good go at going round the outside of Carlos Sainz at 4. And I think that the racer in Helmut Marko and the racer in Christian Horner really respects that. And I think 100% support him. And we're going to see Alex Albon certainly see out the season. I mean, some people have been saying, are they going to swap them before the end of the season? Absolutely not. And I think he's got a long-term future at Red Bull.
So swap them would be Albon with Gasly. Gasly seems in a great place with the AlphaTauri team, but Red Bull giving public backing to Albon in a way that we didn't really ever see with the young Frenchman.
Kudos to Pierre Gasly. He is doing a phenomenal job, but I don't think we're going to see any swapping. I think it's likely to be Danny Kvyat out and Yuki Tsunoda, who's winning races in Formula 2 in the other car there.
I would like to see Yuki Tsunoda given another season in Formula 2. He is a driver that consistently improves. I think the Red Bull program could get into similar territory if they promote him after this year.
They've got form, haven't they, AJ? He'll be up there next year.
He probably will. He's a lovely bloke and he would deserve his opportunity. You've just basically opened the door for me to talk about F2, which was very Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. It was very much the lowest ebb of the F2 season. Callum Ilott in complete control. And it's like someone at F2 has a roulette wheel. That when they get, it's a bit of a samey race, this. Let's spin the wheel. And then suddenly you've got cars everywhere. The last lap was more frantic than the first lap because you had some drivers out there, including Yuki Tsunoda, on old tyres, and he managed to hang on to 4th place. So in a weekend when everyone's been hanging on to their tyres extraordinarily at the end, Yuki Tsunoda doing a very, very similar job, would have impressed a lot of people. I don't know how he got 4th place. But then again, the guy who won the race, Nobuharu Matsushita, won from 18th on the grid. F2 doing F2 things.
Crazy race. Good fun,
Absolute, great fun. Well, TC, we have reached the end of another triple header. And these races coming every single week, they are doing absolutely marvellous things to the friendship and the working relationship of the team principals down there in the paddock. As you know, having spoken to them every week, everyone's getting along really well. Everyone's being super friendly. And in the team principals press conference, well, it's just happy families right now, right?
Look, I thought a lot of what Otmar said was accurate. I'm not an engineer. I don't know the rule book, first page to the last page, but as CEO, you have a racing team, and it's their job to know the rule book and the regulations. In my time here leading McLaren, I've never been fined $1, let alone 400,000. I've never been docked points. I think Otmar thought it was 7.5 points until Sky Television pointed out it was 15 points. And as far as historic racing, I think people that know me know I enjoy historic racing. And I'd invite Otmar to come join me because he's got a historic car that he's currently racing. So, but that's all kind of part of the race weekend fun.
It's a Royal Rumble on a Thursday. Man, are people stressed and irritable down there. Feels like you're going to say, now, AJ, what happened afterwards is that Otmar got Zach in a headlock.
I think he wanted to. I really do. I mean, as Zach was delivering that, imagine they're sat next to each other, and as Zach was delivering that, Otmar just looked directly ahead. Directly ahead. He didn't blink. He didn't say something. And I was trying to get his attention because I wanted to say, do you want to add anything? Do you want to come back at him? And he was just staring. I couldn't get his attention. I was waving at him. And it was I think the line that really hurt was the one which saying, and I'm a fan, Zach saying, I'm a fan of historic racing. And, well, he's running in a historic car. So, he knows he's obviously a fan as well. And that was, I think, the one that really got to Otmar. And I'm surprised Otmar didn't come back and say, well, I mean, what's it like to get beaten by a historic car?
I thought Otmar repaid the favour later in the weekend when he said, oh, we're not the third fastest car, clearly implying that McLaren are the third fastest car, knowing full well that McLaren are not the third fastest car. This nonsense is going to run and run and run, and it's all good fun, isn't it, deep down?
Yeah, and then just imagine next year they're both going to have the same Mercedes engine pushing their cars along. So the rivalry is going to get even more intense between Otmar and Zach. Zach, of course, heading across the pond as we speak because he's going to the Indy 500 where the great Fernando Alonso is driving this weekend. I don't think he's got a great start position, but just talking about another team principal, Cyril Abiteboul was asked about this at the weekend. And Cyril said, I am so nervous. I am so nervous about this race. I can't sleep properly until after the Indy 500 because, of course, Alonso is going to be a Renault driver next year and he just wants him to see out Sunday's race.
Yeah, hopefully the 33 in the field all come back safe and well, and it looks like it will be a fantastic race. Could have an Andretti ending the curse, could have Fernando Alonso becoming the second driver ever to win the Triple Crown. Not a bad advert for the Indy 500.
Yeah, and not a bad way for you, AJ, to spend your weekend off.
Well, I thought that what I really needed to do was talk into a microphone more.
Well, AJ, another show done. Mate, I've got to go to the airport.
It looked a lovely luxury penthouse you were in this week, honestly.
Mate,
at least we know where the budget goes.
Yeah, exactly. Mate, as ever, do you know what? This hotel hasn't been the greatest. There's been no hot water for most of the week.
So fussy, TC, honestly.
Yeah. Well, the great Jodie Scheckter will tell you that you never have a hot shower because that's bad for you. You only have cold showers. Not really my thing, but it gets a bit tiresome after a while. Got to be honest, Jodie.
I think the people in the room next to you might need a cold shower, given how many times we've had to stop recording this podcast.
Yeah. And if any noises did sneak into this recording, do let us know what you thought you heard. Hashtag F1 Nation.
And aside from that, hashtag F1 Nation for any questions, any comments. You can also leave us a review. We would very much appreciate that. Subscribe whilst you're there as well. Why not? What have you got to lose? Thanks to Christian Horner. Thanks to Tom Clarkson. Thanks to you for listening. A rare week off for Formula One. Not sure what we're going to do with ourselves, to be honest. But I can guarantee you, next Tuesday, where you get your podcasts, F1 Nation will return. And we will speak to you then.